Have you ever wanted to move to Australia? What are your main motivations for going? Why would you not want to go? This week, Western Australia launched a massive campaign to lure more than 31,000 workers from the UK to Australia.
We need to hide our nurses, our teachers and our police because Australians are trying to lure them down under.
Doctors, nurses, teachers, police officers, miners, plumbers, mechanics, builders, they're all in demand.
Australia's worker shortage.
But is it really worth the move? G'day guys, my name's Ross and I moved with my family to Australia during a global pandemic. We moved over here with all of the dreams of a life down under. So how does Western Australia think they're going to attract so many skilled workers? Well, according to this article by the Daily Mail, yeah, you can trust the Daily Mail, this is how they're going to do it. Wages are higher, cost of living is lower, and the weather is better. Sounds bloody dreamy.
It's a no-brainer, isn't it?
So how much higher are the wages? Obviously, that differs from profession to profession. Why can't I say that right? Obviously, that differs from profession to profession. And if you're a tradie, it's almost a license to print money. But take my profession, teaching, for example, where the starting wage in the UK is around $49,000. I know, how did we even get by? Well, in Western Australia, that same starting wage for a teacher is more than $78,000. What about police officers? Well, in the UK, the starting wage for a police officer is around $37,500. When you graduate in WA, that starting wage is nearly $77,000. Not only is there a fairer pay gap between teachers and police officers, after all, don't teachers just babysit all day? But overall, the starting wage for these skilled professions is much higher, and they give you a gun in Australia. It's not like teachers put their life on the line or anything, is it? What's going on?
I'm just waiting for a mate.
But what about the cost of living? Australia is really expensive, don't you know? Hey, if I had $1 for every time someone had said that to me, I'd be a millionaire by now. Well, as we've already established, Australia has one of the highest, if not the highest, average wages in the world. But that's not really helpful if you still don't earn enough to get by. Well, on our channel, we've created a number of cost of living videos, and we update them all the time. And while the cost of living has gone up all over the world, thanks Rona and Putin, it seems like Australia could be one of the few countries to make it a little bit easier on all our pockets. Take nurses, for example. In Queensland, they got a wage rise. And it was backdated. The same thing happened to teachers. When was the last time you got a wage rise in your country because of inflation? They promise hard-working Brits can have it all and boast Australian power bills are nearly half of that of the UK, which are up to $4,500 this year. How can people afford that? Well, in Australia, we don't really have to pay for heating, especially in Perth, but you will have to pay for air conditioning. Well, it's a good thing that humans have engineered a way to harness the power of the sun to keep your energy bills down. Solar panels in Australia work a treat. And with the 3,200 hours of sunshine every year, they allow you to keep it cooler when it's sunny and hot. Solar panels in the UK are about as useful as a chocolate teapot. So despite all of that investment, you're still at the mercy of the energy companies. Remember, Australia isn't perfect, but all it has to be is a little bit better than where you currently live to make you consider to want to go. That alone will save Poms enough to buy 183 pints of beer, 110 roast dinners, or 500 jars of Marmite for a taste of home. Well, how many schooners is that? Most Brits don't know what a schooner is. You'd get more than 183, that's for sure. It's because they're a little bit smaller. Unless you're in South Australia, because then they just call them a pint, but it's still a schooner. 110 roast dinners? That's 2 a week. No one has to go through the faff of having to cook one of those in this heat, just for the taste of nostalgic Britain. How many steaks will that afford on the barbie? And 500 jars of Marmite? That's a lifetime supply. Surely it would be better to say that the savings on your cost of living might go pretty far to affording you a return flight back to Blighty when you feel a bit homesick for your friends and family. I know it's a little bit more of a downer, but it's probably a more realistic way of explaining how much money you're going to save on your cost of living. Many of our ancestors were sent from the UK to Australia as convicts. Now it would be a crime not to make that move. Mate, if you're a convict, they're not going to let you in. And don't talk about Australia's convict past. No one here thinks that's funny. Especially in South Australia, which was actually a free settling state. I'm a historian. No, someone told me that. Australian society is fantastically egalitarian, for the most part, and very few people actually look down on others to their face. It's a wonderful thing, and after all, it's too hot to worry about class. What's the point? But if you're prepping new migrants to think it's okay to talk about Australia's convict past, then very quickly they're going to get called Australia's favourite C word, and not in a friendly, jovial way.
Die a day! Yeah!
So what is Western Australia actually selling? $5 one-way public transport? That's pretty cheap. In Brisbane we pay a little over $6. Don't move to Queensland. We used to live in Reading. A similar geographical distance to London is where we currently live to the centre of Brisbane. The cost of a one-way train from Reading to London, $41.95. There's no logical reason for that cost, but greed. Toll-free roads, no traffic jams and parking on the beach? Well, that's not necessarily fair for the whole of Australia, but probably so for Perth. Have you ever been to Bondi Beach? I know that's not in Perth, I'm just using that as an example. With Australia's generally low density population and Western Australia's being one of the lowest in the world, if you actually want to go looking for crowds, I'm sure you'll find them. But if you want a little bit of seclusion, well, there'll be plenty of unspoiled coastline too. Just maybe swim between the flags to start off with. Best sports stadium in the world? Arguable. I bet the atmosphere in the Emirates is electric this year. Please don't choke Arsenal. But if you want to move to Australia or even WA, is it all it's cracked up to be? Yes, it's not perfect, there are some differences, and you better get used to putting on sunscreen or you're gonna fry. You'll miss your friends and family from the UK or wherever you're moving from, but you'll gain new lifelong friends, find an overall happier and easier going way of life, and you'll be making an investment into your own and your family's future. Don't listen to those who call Australia a nanny state or a forced vaccine detention centre. If you do believe them, then we probably don't want you. And if you think that staying in the UK is a better option, well, if it's broken now, what do you think it's going to be like when 31,000 skilled workers realise the truth and want to move to Australia? It'll probably be pretty broken then. If you're interested in making the move, but you're unsure of what to expect, then watch this video. See you next time.